What do you think about there's a lot of vitriol and a lot of hot takes on both sides of the, whatever you want to call it, a bailout. Some people are saying it's not really a bailout. You mentioned earlier it's a bailout of the depositors. Just your thoughts around the way it's been handled. A lot of people out there calling for letting these depositors lose everything or letting them lose, some cents on the dollar of what they had deposited. But just generally how you view this bailout, if you want to call it that. What precedent does that set? Good, positive, indifferent? Just your thoughts.
If there's one thing we've learned as we've, stumbled from crisis to crisis since the global financial crisis, is that when it comes down to facing the abyss or breaking some technicality of the law, the Fed will break that technicality of the law every day and 3 times on Sunday. And so here, the Fed was presented with a very vocal group of highly influential, wealthy financiers from the West Coast, pounding the table all weekend on Twitter, stirring up a bank run that, frankly, their peers had caused, demanding that something be done, and insinuating and provoking other banks into having similar challenges in the hopes that they could stare down the Fed and the Fed would bail out the depositors. And so I can understand why people are very angry. I believe that the Fed and Janet Yellen had no choice yesterday. And the fact that they knew they also were going to shut down Signature meant that they needed to do something significant and substantial and protect the depositors. So that has long-term consequences for the banking sector. Like, I do believe that FDIC 250K level now is basically meaningless, which counterintuitively could stop these types of runs from occurring in the next weeks and months ahead. But if they had not, if we woke up today and the insured deposits at both Silicon Valley Bank and Signature were made whole, which you would expect, and then the unsecured deposits received a cash advance of 35% of their claim, and then a certificate for the other 65% of their claim, while the FDIC slowly worked out the assets and sold them off and made the depositors whole. We would have seen, and we still may, we would have seen undoubtedly a flush out of the system and a potential system-wide, collapse. So the Fed had to do whatever it needed to do to prevent that. There's going to be accountability here in the days and weeks and months ahead. But I don't view, look, what banker, as I said earlier, wants to see their equity wiped out, their pensions jeopardized, their legal freedom? Like, there's going to be people going to jail. I mean, in some form or fashion, one would suspect. Who wants to risk that? So I think the sort of arguments that this is somehow, going to provide moral hazard on the part, there's a moral hazard argument against how bankers are going to perceive this. I think that's probably wrong. I don't think any responsible banker is going to look at this event and say, all right, I get a free call option on risk, let's roll the dice. I don't think that's going to be how bankers internalize this. I think there's going to be a lot of chagrin at the fact that this does seem to catalyze ever more consolidation, and where we will probably end up with 5 banks or 6 banks or 8 banks or 10 banks. But that's more likely than well, it's certainly more preferable than the alternative that the Fed was staring at last night. And by the way, this has all been made all the more worse because we keep conditioning the market to expect that bailout. And so the moment you pull it away, that's truly the end of the line.
Right.
And so if everyone's base case is the Fed has my back and suddenly they don't, then all bets are off. And I don't think neither you nor I nor the people crying foul on moral hazard really want to run that experiment. That's my hunch.
Right.